Bruce Willis stars in the 2018 remake, not adaptation, of the 1974 Michael Winner film Death Wish, directed by Eli Roth and written for the screen by Joe Carnahan, who also wrote and directed films such as Smokin' Aces, The A-Team and The Grey. The vigilante revenge narrative that started it all regards now surgeon Paul Kersey turning from mild-mannered careerist, husband and father to reclusive, widowed gun owner who takes his frustration out on others. However, this time he gets to find out who killed his wife and crippled his daughter. Happy endings are in sight. Lingering in production hell for years, Death Wish 2018 does feel like a film nobody really wanted to make. Say what you want about the filmography of Eli Roth, but he is a passionate craftsman and student of the game, and I feel it's because of his involvement that Death Wish 18 has any form to begin with. But enthusiasm can only get you so far, and when your script is lacking and your star lead ain't feeling it, what you get is a mediocre action film struggling for a reason to exist. Devoid of the psychology found in the source novel, the incendiary politics of the original, or even the trashy charm of the sequels, the latter of which is most surprising to me, Death Wish Old Enough to Vote is a $30 million production that feels no different from the many direct-to-DVD action films that Bruce Willis has starred in previously, albeit with a much less interesting concept. This intellectual property was squandered on a film awash with banality and cynical homage. Death Wish, Can I See Some ID Please, was adequate, safe and very depressing to watch. Ugh. Another remake on our hands as a young-ish Chris Hemsworth and that guy from Drake and Josh star in the questionably PG-13 rated 2012 remake of Red Dawn, to date the sole directorial credit of career stuntman Dan Bradley. You know Homefront? That's kind of the story here. For the benefit of those who didn't live that experience, Red Dawn 2012 consists of a Kim Jong-un-led North Korea and an extremist-led Russia invading the United States and those other shithole countries. A group of teens evade capture and form a resistance group known as the Wolverines. Their mission is to liberate their country from these foreign invaders using insurgency methods. Red Dawn 12 is a highly implausible and not that well acted action film that has its entertainment value salvaged only by its well crafted action set pieces. There is nothing engaging to be found in the story apart from comedic value, but there are several action scenes which feature practical stunts, a lot of meaty sound effects and a not too obnoxious amount of high shutter speed shaky cam, although your personal mileage might vary on the latter. If it was not for these enjoyable action sequences, Red Dawn, isn't that Jeffrey Epstein over there, might have turned out to be an even more laughably, even infamously bad effort. But a ridiculous non-ending aside, the wildly entertaining acts of terrorism within the film are enough to make this little war fantasy enjoyable enough background noise. The third entry into the Starship Troopers franchise, 2008's Marauder, is written and directed by Ed Neumeier, the 1997 original screenwriter and starring the 97's original lead Casper Van Dien. Diane, who fucking cares? Starship Troopers sequels have a reputation for bypassing the satire of the original and being nothing more than unabashed fascist power fantasies. Most likely because of Neumeier being at the helm, Marauder feels very much like a true sequel. Though severely diminished in scale and not as sharp in its satire, the film has enough gore, world building, and of a nuanced sense of irony to be a worthy follow-up to the Verhoeven-directed original. The contrast between the fascist propaganda and the ugly, logical outcomes of such a society is not as well balanced as the first film due to the diminished budget. Cinematic spectacle itself was ingeniously harnessed by Verhoeven and Neumeier respectively to engross the audience within the film's universe, to make them understand more how a world like this could exist. War can be quite sexy if presented in a certain way, and especially if the enemy is not even human. 1997's Starship Troopers was a heavily fetishized war movie that played out like any other straight-faced entry of the genre, only that it played things a little too straight in order to provoke that very important, very sweet sense of uncomfortability. The sense that reminds you that you are still able to think for yourself. This is why the OG Starship Troopers is so good and why its reputation as a sci-fi classic continues to grow. Starship Troopers 3 has some of this magic and does give you some of those chills, but it just doesn't have enough bite in its satire to balance out all the hoorah bullshit. The writing just isn't as good, simply put. It was my impression that the military bureaucracy, basically the space SS, were portrayed a little too coyly and edged towards something resembling human interaction, which is not the point here. Good satire doesn't humanize, it exaggerates, it exposes the flaws. Marauder at points felt more like a lionization of its universe rather than a critique. This is the critical failure of Marauder, the altar in which you can blame the film feeling like it's just going through the motions, like the bad CG is an issue at all, or that the editing could have done with a little more work. Marauder moves in ebbs and flows, filler and trademark on-point satire. Mediocre is definitely not the word I'm looking for here. Flawed is more fitting, as the film has moments which entertain and unsettle equally, but also has an uneven tone and production values which really show the film's budget at times. Marauder is a faithful sequel to Starship Troopers, even though the quality of the writing and direction leaves a lot to be desired. Right, to sum up this not at all timely collection of very fine films, Death Wish 2018 is a boring, bland remake that is the cinematic equivalent of your Breitbart sharing uncle who took too much ecstasy in the 90s. Red Dawn 2012 is a film deservedly lost to time with everything awful apart from the passable action sequences. And finally, Starship Troopers 3 Marauder is a subpar sequel that ultimately became what it beheld. Have a nice day. Dean.